cornerback room, we lost a Thorpe Award winner. How are we going to replace that? Gerald, what do you think about this room?
How do you don't replace Jahdae Barron, right? That's not a thing you do. You mitigate the losses and see what happens. I think the guy who I'm like most curious to see this year is Jalen Gilbo. I think Jalen Gilbo has been a font of untapped potential at this point. Like, he's been good and we've seen flashes, and he played in that nickel spot in this defense. He played a little bit of corner in this defense, and he played pretty well, right? But I think from what we expected from Jalen Gilbo, and I think from what we heard about Jalen Gilbo going into this last season and this season, I want to see more. And I think the ceiling for him is pretty high. And I think he's going to be the guy who really, especially as we talk about just replacing Jahdae Barron specifically, I think he's the guy who's going to have to be the one to step in those shoes. And it sucks and it's unfair to like, Jahdae Barron has been the most underrated corner 3 years running, and he finally just got recognized for it. So the fact that like you have to step in, and Jalen Gilbo's not, he's a guy who's got a lot of confidence. He's a guy who's got a lot of belief in himself. So I don't think he's going to be daunted or intimidated by the ask to do it. But I think Texas fans need to remember and be patient with the fact that like Jahdae Barron made a lot of things look better than they probably could have been in some ways, just because of his ability, both in the pass and the run game is going to be something interesting to watch. Jahdae Barron was one of the better open field tacklers I've seen in a very long time. And so Texas fans, we have to remember, like, Jahdae Barron was a special guy, and asking anybody to replace him is going to be a Herculean task. So letting Jalen Gilbo grow into that, the test is going to come early in Columbus. That's a scary thing to say out loud, but I think Jalen Gilbo is the guy who's probably going to have that fall on his shoulders.
Yeah. So do you think he's going to slide outside, or do you think he stays at nickel? Because I think there's that possibility he could slide outside and then we put someone else at nickel. I mean, we saw that with Jahdae Barron. What do you think?
Yeah, I would like to see him stay at nickel. I think it's probably his best position, especially with Manny Muhammad, with Kobe Black potentially. Like there I think are more guys that can play the outside well than can play the inside well. I think when you look at like drop off from Jalen Gilbo at the nickel to the next guy down to Jalen Gilbo on the outside of the next guy down, I think the drop between Gilbo at nickel is bigger than the one that Gilbo on the outside. So I think leaving him at the nickel is probably the right move, especially with the number of bodies that I think can play at the outside. Like I said, Manny Muhammad and Kobe Black is a pretty solid pairing. So I think that's probably what I would hope to see. But again, we may see somebody sprout in practice in spring. You never know. But as it stands right now, again, 6 weeks before spring practice starts, that's what my read is.
No, I agree. I don't know. See, this is what people talked about last year with Jahdae Barron. They said, does he have the foot speed? I was totally against that. I thought he did, and I thought he'd be great on the outside. I think he's just a really smart football player. Do I think he's the best athlete? No. And I think he's what I can already tell you what's going to happen with him. He's going to run a slightly bad 40 time, and people are going to overreact and be like, man, he's not that quick. And I'm going to say, put on the tape, because it doesn't matter. He knows how to take angles. When he gets there, he delivers a boom. He is not scared to tackle. So we're definitely going to miss him. And I don't know if Jalen Gilbo can slide outside like he did. So I agree. I think we should keep him there. And I don't even know who would take over the Nickelback position if that happened. Like Warren Roberson, maybe I would be my guess to be number 2, but I'm not 100% sure of that. On the outside is going to be interesting to me with this. Is it going to be Kobe Black or this guy? I've already been hearing rumblings of this. Cade Phillips, the freshman coming in, high 4-star, low 5-star, depending where you see. Everyone that's been talking to his high school coaches or anything like that has been saying this guy is ready to play right away. This guy has the tools to play right away. What do you see from Cade Phillips? And do you think he can be that guy that plays on the outside and maybe, just takes over for Kobe Black because we think that's who that's going to be right now?
Yeah, I mean, I think Cade Phillips has everything you want to see from a skill position guy, from a cornerback coming in and making the jump. And this is not meant to be reductive of the position, but I think it's as a young guy, as a true freshman coming in, like cornerback is one of those spots where you see those guys that are able to make the jump easier. Again, we saw Manny Muhammad do it 2 years ago where he came in and he was a starter coming out of camp, right? So I think there's an opportunity for Phillips to come in and be the guy. I'm a big believer in Kobe Black, though, and I think the advantage, Texas does usually play 3-ish corners, 4-ish corners in a rotation. So I think you're going to see both of them regardless and see them get a significant number of snaps. Again, I think Kobe Black is one of those guys that I want to see take that next step, and I think has a lot more in the tank than we've seen from him. And if Phillips, and I'll just say it like this, if Phillips comes in and beats him out, Phillips comes in and beats him out. A rising tide raises all ships. And so whoever wins that, whoever's the better man for the job wins it. I won't be upset. I think Phillips has the opportunity to come in. Dude has a great vision, great awareness. He's very quick. He's very good at closing. He can high point balls. Like, he's got a lot of things that you want from that type of corner. So again, I think if he comes in, spring practice, we're still 6 weeks away. So he's got an opportunity to come in and really blow things up in that room. But again, my money, just based upon experience, is probably going to be Kobe Black, but I wouldn't be shocked to see if it goes the other way.
No, and Kobe Black has elite traits. I mean, the guy's 6'1", he's long, rangy, fast, has a brother who was good at Oklahoma State as well. So all that plays into it, and I think he is going to have a good year. Like, I was impressed when he did come in and play a little bit. We really used, I would say, 3 main corners, and then he came in, spot decisions for him, or spot play for him. Obviously, losing Gavin Holmes too is going to be a big deal, because when he came in, he played much better this year than he did last year. It was not very good last year when he came in. You saw a pretty big drop off. This year, you really didn't see that much of a drop off between him and Malik Muhammad, and I think that's a little bit of both. I think Gavin Holmes got a little bit better, Malik Muhammad got a little bit worse, and that's a guy. Let's talk about him. I think he's got to step up a lot. Like, this guy was the first 5-star guy at cornerback to come to Texas in like 12 years, and I think he's done well, but I don't think he's played anywhere near the potential that we thought he had coming into Texas.
Yeah, I think we saw a bit of a regression, I think, from year 1 to year 2. And you see that from time to time where a kid plays really well early and then kind of has that sophomore slump for whatever reason. I'll just say it like this. It could be a contract year for him, right? If he comes out and plays really well and turns back into Manny Island, then I think this could be a big contract year for him. Because let's be honest, like, shutdown cornerbacks get paid in the NFL. They do. It is what it is. Like, he's got an opportunity to come out and make some generational wealth for his family. And so we see some guys in that contract year really step it up. We saw for Texas at a couple of spots this year. So I think Manny Muhammad has an opportunity to cement himself as one of the guys that we talk about. We talk about DBU at Texas. He got picked on a little bit in some of the, we saw it in the Clemson game specifically. He did not look good. Clemson found something they liked in his game that they just like to pick on. So that's something to keep an eye on, because I think he's got we talk about, he's got all the physical traits, all the attributes. He's got everything you want. He's tall, he's rangy, he's got long legs, he's got good closing speed, he can high point balls. I think it might be a physicality thing. I think it might be which is honestly a lot of times a mental thing. So I wonder if there's something that can happen between the ears that needs to flip to get him to play a little bit more physically, a little bit more aggressively, and really be the guy that we know he can be.
Yeah, and I brought up, you saw him struggle versus Clemson. You saw him struggle a little bit versus Arizona State, but you saw him play well versus Ohio State, whether it's a mental thing of locking in, like, these guys aren't really at where I am. I don't really need to take this as seriously in your preparation. And then you get out there and you realize, oh, maybe that's not the case, because he played really well in the Ohio State game. Yeah. Was he asked to do something a little bit differently in that game than the other games? Yeah. When he was on Jeremiah Smith, he always had a little bit of help, but I don't know. It's weird with him. He's inconsistent. That's always kind of been at Texas. Consistency is kind of like Alfred Collins. If he plays up until that elite level like we know he's capable of, he's going to be a really good football player. I want to bring up 2 more guys. Santana Wilson. Obviously, Adrian Wilson was a fantastic safety in the NFL for a very long time. That guy was in the NFL for like 15 years as a safety. He almost played till he's like 40 years old as a safety. So he's got a lot of help there with his dad being a really good professional football player. I think he can play a lot this year. I think he's one of those guys that could sneak up, and honestly, he could even play that outside cornerback position and take over for Kobe Black. He's got that type of skill. What do you like about him?
Yeah, I think everything you just mentioned, right? There's something to be said about coming from a pedigree. Watching your dad, you've got the best coaches. It's why we talk so highly about Arch Manning, right? You get more football knowledge at Thanksgiving than you do from any sort of camp. And I think that's he's got a body that you like that can play physical. The SEC is a very physical league on the outside. We see them letting a little bit of contact go, and I think that's an advantage for a guy like him who can play a little bit more physically, who can use his body, who can use his hands and his range to kind of be annoying to wide receivers and not get called for it, which is a great thing to happen. So I think he's got an opportunity to like you said, move outside, to try to be that, to be not a shutdown corner. I don't know if he has that in him quite yet. I think he's got it in him maybe long term in a couple of years, but I think he's got an ability to use that physicality, to use his body, to use again what the good Lord has gifted him with, to be a bugaboo for some for some wide receivers in a league that generally lets you play a little more physically.
Yeah, 100%. And this is the last guy we'll talk about on this list. Caleb Chester. I really like this guy. He was only a 3-star recruit, or a high 3-star recruit, maybe not even high, but like mid-tier 3-star recruit. But he's 6'3", long, rangy, athletic, can play the ball really well. I watched a little bit of his tape, and I remember making the recruiting video about it. I'm all over this guy. I think this guy long-term is going to be a fantastic player for Texas. I don't think he plays into it this year because, again, you have Cade Phillips. You also have Grayson Littleton coming in as a freshman. You have Santana Wilson, sophomore, Wardell Mack, sophomore, Kobe Black, sophomore, Warren Roberson in there, Manny Muhammad, and Jalen Gilbert.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if there's much room for him to get in there and play this year. But again, like Jonathan Cunningham, like Smith the Roadbow, I think this is that guy at the cornerback position where he can play, but he's just got to wait his turn. And I think he's going to be really good when it is his turn.
And he's got that one thing you can't teach. He's pretty fast for a guy of his size, right? 6'3", and I think he ran like a 23 second 200. Like, the guy's got some speed on him. It's like, you can't really teach fast. So the advantage of having a guy who's 6'3" and can also run, right? That's what you want. That is the makings of a guy who can lock down a side of the field. And so he's got an opportunity to do that again. I don't think it's this year. It may not even be next year. He's got a little bit of a longer development curve. He needs to come in and really hone his body a bit and really learn the position. And this is not meant to be a shot at a kid or anybody like him, but like guys that are just that physically bigger than other players don't have to be as concerned with their technique. And so I think you see some of that when you watch his tape, because he's covering, again, a 5'10" kid who just got out of Spanish 2, right? Like, that's just what he's doing. So he's got 5 inches on you. He doesn't really have to do a lot to lock you down. And so he's got some development to do, but you see the flashes, you see, again, and you can't teach 6'3", you can't teach speed. Like, it just is what it is.
Yeah, 100%. It's going to be very interesting. So that is the cornerback room.